It was supposed to be a routine sentencing, the kind of morning that began with black robes, quiet whispers, and the faint smell of polished wood in Courtroom 2B. Judge Evelyn Hayes had presided over hundreds of cases, each one a story of guilt and consequence. But that morning, as she prepared to sentence 29-year-old Michael Trent for the murder of a young woman named Abby Nolan, something in her gut felt off, like a note slightly out of tune in a symphony she'd heard too many times. The evidence was airtight, the confession signed, the DNA conclusive. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours. And yet, as she raised the gavel to speak, the courtroom doors opened, and everything she thought she knew about justice unraveled. Because the man who walked in was supposed to be dead. Judge Evelyn Hayes had built her career on precision. Calm, controlled, a figure who believed truth was measurable, provable, a matter of facts, not feelings. Across the room sat Michael Trent, dressed in county orange, wrists shackled, his eyes hollow from months in holding. He had confessed to Abby Nolan's murder after 3 grueling days of interrogation. His public defender barely spoke during trial, just a procedural formality before an inevitable sentence. The victim, Abby, was 23, a nursing student found strangled behind an abandoned diner off Route 11. Her phone was smashed. Her car abandoned 2 blocks away. The town of Clearwater called her death tragic. The headlines called it solved. But not everyone believed it. In the back of the courtroom sat Detective Ryan Keller, the original investigator on the case. He'd never been comfortable with the confession. Too neat, too fast. He'd spent the last 6 months quietly rechecking the evidence, even after the DA told him to stand down. That morning, he was there not for closure, but for confirmation of a feeling he couldn't shake. The courtroom buzzed with the monotony of procedure. Judge Hayes read through sentencing notes, her voice even and deliberate. Michael stood motionless, staring at the floor. And then it happened. The back door swung open with a heavy creak. A man walked in, tall, gaunt, wearing a gray hoodie streaked with dirt. His steps were slow but deliberate. He said nothing as the guards turned, startled, hands instinctively going to their belts. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Detective Keller froze, because the man walking down the aisle was Jacob Nolan, Abby's older brother. Except Jacob had been declared missing 6 months earlier, presumed dead after his car was found submerged in the Cedar River. And in his hand, Jacob held a small plastic evidence bag. Inside, it was a torn piece of fabric stained dark with dry blood. He stopped in the center of the room and said, voice hoarse and shaking, "You got the wrong man." For a moment, no one moved. Judge Hayes's gavel hovered midair. The bailiffs advanced cautiously. Jacob lifted his other hand, revealing a phone. The screen showed a shaky video clip, time-stamped 6 months earlier, the night of Abby's death. It was from a dash cam, the kind of footage that shouldn't exist anymore. In it, headlights swept across a gravel lot. 2 figures argued near a dumpster. The sound was muffled, but one word cut through clear as glass. Abby. The camera shook as the car backed up. A man grabbed Abby by the arm. The attacker wasn't Michael Trent. The frame froze on his face, older, unshaven, eyes glinting with something feral. Jacob said quietly, "That's him. That's the man who killed my sister." Detective Keller rushed forward, demanding to see the footage. Within seconds, the courtroom erupted. Whispers, shouts, the sound of boots as deputies sealed the exits. Judge Hayes ordered recess. Her voice cracked, not from fear, but from disbelief. The video was crude, distorted by rain and movement, but the face was clear enough for identification. It was Daniel Marks, a known drifter with a violent record, once questioned but cleared early in the investigation due to insufficient evidence. And then came the part that froze everyone's blood. The footage timestamp placed Marks at the scene 30 minutes after the prosecution said Abby was already dead, the same night Michael Trent supposedly confessed. The implication was devastating. The confession had been coerced, the evidence had been manipulated, and the wrong man was about to spend his life in prison. Judge Hayes cleared the room except for the essential personnel. She turned to Keller and said, "Find him." Within hours, Officers tracked Daniel Marks to an abandoned warehouse outside town. Inside, they found the same hoodie, the same boots, both speckled with blood. A partial DNA sample matched Abby Nolan. And near the back of the warehouse, buried beneath tarp and debris, they found something else, Jacob's missing car. Inside it, the original dash cam, the full recording. The footage revealed everything. Marks had attacked Abby when she refused to lend him money. Michael Trent had stumbled onto the scene minutes later, panicked, and tried to help her. When police arrived, his prints and his silence became all they needed to close the case fast. The town wanted resolution, the system wanted order, and the truth became collateral damage. 2 days later, Judge Hayes reconvened court. This time, the defendant's chair sat empty. Michael Trent had been released pending full dismissal. Instead, Daniel Marks sat where he once stood, his wrists shackled, his expression defiant. Judge Hayes read the revised charge with a trembling voice. Daniel Marks, you stand accused of the murder of Abigail Nolan. How do you plead? He sneered. You already believed the first story. What makes you think you'll believe this one? The courtroom fell silent. This wasn't victory. It was revelation, bitter and sobering. Judge Hayes looked down at the case file, the same one she'd nearly closed forever. And she said softly, because this time, the evidence speaks for itself. She struck the gavel. The sound echoed like thunder through the still air. In the days that followed, reporters flooded Clearwater. The DA's office issued apologies. Detective Keller was commended for persistence that bordered on obsession. But for Judge Hayes, the lesson cut deeper. She realized justice wasn't a system. It was a struggle, fragile, human, and often one mistake away from catastrophe. The wrong man had nearly lost his life because the truth was inconvenient. And the man who truly deserved judgment walked freely for half a year because the evidence didn't fit the timeline. As the courtroom emptied, Hayes stood alone beneath the tall windows, sunlight catching the edge of her gavel. She whispered to no one, "We measure justice by proof, but sometimes proof comes too late. Some crimes are solved by evidence. Others, by the courage to admit we were wrong." This was Trace Crime Files. Subscribe for more stories where truth is stranger than fiction, and justice is never as simple as it seems.